It's easy to think our problems are totally unique, right? But what if the cracks we're seeing in our society today, what if they aren't new at all? What if they're just echoes from the fall of the Roman Republic? That's the idea we're going to dig into. Okay, so let's start with someone. We'll call her Sarah. Sarah did everything right. Top of her class, got a fantastic degree in finance. I mean, she is smart, she is capable, and she is ready to work. But she can't find a job. Why? Because the very work she spent years training for is now being done by an AI chatbot. Now, Sarah's situation feels so modern, it's terrifying. But here's the twist. What if this isn't some new glitch in our system? What if it's actually a feature, a really, really old one, like a 2,000-year-old ghost that's come back to haunt us? To really get what's happening right now, we have to go back, way back. We're going to look at what was, for all intents and purposes, the first great purge of skilled, middle-class labor in all of history. All right, so the key idea you need to know is something called the latifundia. Just think of them as the giant megacorporations of ancient Rome. We're talking about these enormous industrial farms owned by a tiny, super wealthy elite. And their business model, well, it was unbeatable because they ran on cheap, disposable slave labor. And this is where it gets kinda spooky, because the parallel is almost perfect. Back in Rome, you had these citizen farmers, the absolute backbone of the Republic, and they got totally wiped out, driven off their land because they just couldn't compete. Fast forward to today, our skilled graduates, people like Sarah, are being pushed out not by slaves, but by software that can do their job for, practically nothing. The economic engine driving all of this, it's exactly the same. Squeeze out every last bit of profit using the absolute cheapest labor you can find. So let's think about this. What happens when a huge chunk of your productive middle class just gets erased? Well, they don't just vanish into thin air. Nope. They become something completely different. They become a new class of people who are totally dependent on someone else just to survive. In Rome, this new class had a name, the proletarii. These are Roman citizens, but they'd lost everything: their land, their jobs, their way of life. So they flooded into the cities, owning nothing except their children. That's actually where the name comes from. They are proles. And to stop them from, burning the city down, the state had a solution. Give them free grain and spectacular, brutal entertainment. Bread and circuses. And it worked. It kept the masses quiet, passive, and totally dependent. Okay, so the modern parallel. It's just as shocking. We might not have gladiators in the Colosseum, but what we do have is a staggering gap in wealth. I mean, look at this. Right now, households led by older folks have, on average, 12 times the median wealth of younger households. That's not just a gap, that's a chasm. You've got an entire generation that's basically locked out of the kind of prosperity their parents and grandparents took for granted. And it's not just about what people have, it's about what they owe. It's about debt. We've told young people to take on these massive loans for college degrees that sometimes, ironically, make it even harder for them to find a good job. And the result of that? 1 out of every 3 borrowers is standing on what you could call a default cliff. That's a huge number of people on the brink, and it is a perfect recipe for social instability. See, when people start to feel like the whole economic game is rigged against them, it's only a matter of time before their faith in the political system goes right out the window too. It's almost a law of nature that economic anxiety, it just spirals, and it leads to a total breakdown of trust in everything. If you look at the last days of the Roman Republic, it was furiously polarized. On one side, you had the optimates, the best men. They were the faction for the old money, the established elite. On the other side, the popularists, the People's Party, who claimed they were fighting for the little guy. Does any of that sound familiar? 2 sides, both absolutely convinced the other side is trying to tear the whole country apart for their own selfish gain. And this fight didn't stay behind closed doors in the Senate. Oh no, it spilled right out onto the streets. There were these 2 politicians, the Gracchi brothers, and they tried to pass some pretty modest land reforms to help the poor. And how did that political debate end? It ended with a mob of senators grabbing the chairs they were sitting on and literally beating the brothers to death. I mean, just think about that. That was the point of no return. After that, political assassination wasn't unthinkable anymore. It was just another tool in the toolbox. Okay, so maybe we're not beating political opponents to death with furniture, but our public square, our shared space for debate, is absolutely becoming a war zone. The huge fundamental difference today is the tech.
AI can pump out convincing lies, deep fakes, and pure propaganda on an industrial scale. It's happening so fast that the truth can't even get its boots on. It just shreds our shared sense of reality, and it accelerates the death of trust at a speed the Romans couldn't even have dreamed of. So what's the end game here? When people lose faith in their institutions, when they don't trust their politicians, when they can't even agree on what's real, what happens next? They start looking for a shortcut, a savior. They start looking for a strongman, someone who promises to just cut through all the noise and all the gridlock and just fix it. In Rome, this role was played by guys like Marcus Crassus. This dude was the richest man in the entire republic, a billionaire general. And he used his own personal cash to fund private armies, to buy politicians, and to basically vacuum up power for himself. Suddenly, the official authority of the state, of the Senate, it started to matter a whole lot less than the personal bank account and ambition of one single guy. Today's strong men, well, they don't command legions of soldiers, but they command something that might be even more powerful: information and infrastructure. Think about it. The biggest tech companies and the titans who run them now have more influence over our world than some entire countries. They literally control the pipes through which information flows, the town squares where we communicate, even key parts of our digital and physical infrastructure. The center of power? It is absolutely shifted.
Okay, so let's just take a breath and look at what we've seen. We've got economic displacement, a growing class of dependents, a political system decaying into tribalism, and the rise of incredibly powerful individuals outside of government. When you line all those parallels up, it really just begs one massive question. Where are we actually heading?
Here's the thing you have to remember about the Roman Republic. It wasn't conquered by some foreign army. It didn't get invaded. It rotted from the inside out. The final spectacular collapse, that was just the last step in a really long process. A process where the rich hoarded all the power and wealth, the poor were completely forgotten, and the very fabric of society was just shredded as people turned on each other. And as we look at our own challenges today, a digital workforce that's starting to vanish, a national debt that is spiraling towards an almost unimaginable $38 trillion, that warning from 2,000 years ago starts to feel less like history and more like a headline. The stakes, they could not be higher. And so that leaves us right here with this one final, absolutely crucial question. Is our story going to be different? Are we actually going to use all of our incredible technology and everything we know about history to build a better, more stable future? Or are we just living through a reboot? Are we just the latest actors in a 2,000-year-old play?